Keys to the game. I could have gone so many different directions with this. If I don't list one, it's not because it's not important, but these are just the ones that I came down to as the biggest keys in the game. Number one, talked about it last week, got to pressure Will Howard. You just cannot allow him time, mostly allow the receivers time to get open down the field. And there are two reasons this is a huge, huge thing for the Ducks. Number one, Ohio State's wide receivers, I like Oregon secondary, have all year, love the way they've played. Nobody can cover those guys for a super long time. The same applies in the other direction. Ohio State didn't sack Dylan Gabriel. Guess what? He went for 340, 2 touchdowns. Evan Stewart went off. Tez Johnson had a good game. That's just what happens. If you give a quarterback time, good offense beats good defense. In basketball, you can play perfect defense. Kevin Durant's going to rise up as a 7-footer and shoot the ball anyway. You can be a great hitter, but if a good pitcher comes onto the mound and is dictating terms and he's got a 100-mile-an-hour cutter like Emmanuel Clase, most of the time you're just going to lose. So, got to be able to get pressure on Will Howard for the reason, as I mentioned, that you got to stop the wide receivers. But the second component as well is when Ohio State's offense has struggled this year, Will Howard, for being a veteran quarterback, has looked rattled before. He has thrown some bad interceptions. Now, he threw one interception that wasn't, of course, in the first meeting with Oregon, but if you go watch the Michigan game, for instance, and the way that Michigan's front four controlled the line of scrimmage, Will Howard will make a mistake or two, and you better believe that turnovers are a hugely important factor in this game. Of course, that's just duh. Now, that's not the sort of key that I would list going into a game like, Penn State and Boise State, or Penn State and SMU, or Notre Dame and Illinois, Notre Dame and Indiana necessarily. Though Illinois looked pretty good, by the way. 10-win season. Oregon beat them 38-9. Just throwing that out there. Illinois, pretty good team. So, yeah, the turnovers can arise if you pressure Will Howard, but I just don't want to see the Buckeyes offense be able to keep it rolling. Because they had that first round game, they're feeling good, they're feeling confident, and they know what they want to do and what works. You can't let them keep rolling along with that. And the best way to disrupt a great passing attack is with a good pass rush. And frankly, in big spots, in a couple of big spots the last couple of years, this Dan Lanning, Tosh Lupoi coordinated defense has not had a lot of success getting after the quarterback. Remember the Pac-12 championship game last year? They tried to bring a lot of pressure with linebackers and corners and safeties as they had all year, and they didn't get home consistently. Nico Reed had the sack on 4th down, but that, Dorless forced what I think should have been called a fumble, but wasn't, and that was kind of it. That was kind of it. Losing Jordan Burch in that game. We'll talk about him later on today's show, but actually, it fits to talk about him right now. I think having Jordan Burch absolutely positively helps. No doubt about it. Does it completely change the complexion of the game? I mean, if he were to get dinged up and leave, I wouldn't like that, because this is a guy who can just take over drives. He can take over moments. He can make a touchdown, as he did against Maryland. Come off the edge. He can do things against the run. He can do things against the pass. He's a really, really good player, as we all know. I certainly enjoy having him out there. Do I feel better about Oregon's defensive line with him there? Yes, absolutely. My confidence level against the Ohio State offensive line goes from about a 7 to an 8. It doesn't automatically go to a 10, because I can't discount how this Buckeyes offensive line played last week against Tennessee, or in their last game against Tennessee. That's a really good Tennessee front four. I know the SEC's taken a bunch of flack. They deserve it. I've given them some of it over on Locked On College Football, but that Tennessee front four has got a top 10 caliber pick and some other really good guys, and they couldn't get home at all. So maybe Ohio State's figured something out. Remember, Oregon shuffled the offensive line around more than a couple times, and they've been able to continue playing well. So maybe they have just found that equation. But certainly it goes from a 7 to an 8. Oregon won the first time without him, but I'm happy to have him back, because you give me the option, give me a playmaker, give me a guy who could maybe exploit what could be a weakness for Ohio State, but maybe not with the way they played. We don't have a huge sample size. The small one, as I mentioned, is really good for the Buckeyes, but I'd rather have them out there than not. So certainly that's good. Does it radically alter my perception of Oregon's defense? No, because that's just how much talent and depth they've shown themselves to have this year. But remember, no super depth chart guys like Jaden Moore and Amarion Winston. And by the way, Amarion Winston was on the field late in the game on the final drive when Ohio State was going down the field. Just throwing that out there. But he's in the portal, so having Jordan Burch there, definitely feels good. Definitely feels good. Not enough for me to shake my nervousness going into this game. So that's key number one. You got to pressure Will Howard because the receivers are too good, and that's the best way, I think, to force a turnover in this game. Key number two, win the rushing battle. This was a key going into the first game. Oregon won it. It wasn't by a huge margin. It was 155 to 141. But guess what? In the last four meetings between these teams, 2024, 21, the 2015 or 14 national championship game, 14 season played in the 2015 year, and 2009 Rose Bowl played on New Year's Day 2010. Team that wins the rushing battle, 4-0. This is just going rinse and repeat, consistent key to the game. I was really pleased in the first matchup with how Oregon's rush defense performed against Ohio State. But then I watched what Penn State did in the Big Ten championship game, and I went, I didn't love that. Didn't love it. Wasn't thrilled. They are going to have to be better. They should be plenty rested if they were battling illness, which no one was actually able to confirm. I don't know. I mean, everyone's battling it. I've still got a cough that's been hanging around for a while, but Ohio State's going to be dealing with it too. It's not warm where Ohio State is. We saw that in Columbus in their first round playoff game. So that's the second thing. Win the rushing battle. That's just forever a key in this game. That's been the trend. Washington, Michigan last year, national championship game. Michigan ran for more yards, won the game. And by the way, before the first game kicks off, which is Texas and Arizona State, the teams that have run for more yards in the college football playoffs so far, they are 5-0. 5-0. First round, and then the quarterfinal, Boise State was outrushed by Penn State. Teams that win the rushing battle, 5-0. So that's key number two. Key number three, red zone. Red zone's got to be better. You had a trip where you went down in the third quarter. Oregon did, went inside the 5, came up empty. Dylan Gabriel made the wrong read. Tez Johnson was wide open. I don't know that it's actually where the play was designed to go necessarily. It might have just been kind of a decoy motion. But regardless, Oregon had chances on a goal-to-go opportunity to punch it in, came up empty. Late in the game, when they kicked the go-ahead field goal, could have forced Ohio State to need a touchdown coming down the field, but came up empty on 3rd and goal at the 1. This Ohio State defense has been elite in the red zone this year. They were great in the Oregon game, and they were great against Penn State as well. It was a goal line stand that got them a touchdown victory in Happy Valley earlier this year. Jim Knowles is a really good defensive coordinator. I know everybody knows Chip Kelly is Ohio State's offense coordinator, but Jim Knowles, who came over from Oklahoma State a couple of years ago as a result of Joe Moorhead and Mario Cristobal running wild with CJ Verdell in Columbus, he's been really good, and he's still there for a reason. He's a great defensive coordinator. They've been especially tough in the red zone. That's going to be a huge factor in this game. How do you find a way to get 7 instead of 3? Because you look back and heck, you can go to the Trayshawn Holden incident as well and say that was an opportunity. Those are 3 possessions where Oregon went inside the 10 or at least 15-yard line, and they came away with 6 total points. Don't like your chances if you repeat that. Got to be able to get touchdowns, but certainly if the opportunity arises, take points. Because taking points in that game, guess what? Ends up winning the football game. Novel concept, I know. Score points to win, but you can't settle for field goals consistently over and over and over again. So that's key number 3. So pressure Will Howard, win the rushing battle, and be better in the red zone.